everybody, this is Kelsi at Ritter's. Today our class is on having herbs indoors as houseplants. I think it's a really fun thing to do. There's a lot of interest in growing food right now, just because of, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but perceived food shortages. So a lot of people are really interested in producing their own food. Outside of that, it's a lot less wasteful to grow your own herbs. You're not, like, every time I buy parsley at the store, I use what I need for my recipe, and then I have troubles finding another recipe that uses parsley, and then I end up throwing away this icky, soggy parsley after a week. And that's really wasteful, and so it's good to have your own herbs at home for that reason as well. And a lot of people think that you can only do that in, say, the summer and the spring, but there's no reason that you can't do it in the winter too. And the winter is usually when we use most of our herbs, because we're cooking at home, we're cooking for our families, we're cooking at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and so I find a much greater need for fresh herbs during this time of the year anyways. There's no waste or plastic packaging that you have to deal with. Sometimes when people struggle with them, they're like, okay, I quit, I can't do this anymore, I can't keep them alive. But you can then, if they get too leggy or too out of control, maybe you've had them for a few years, you can always just get a new one and cut the old one down and either freeze it or dry it, whichever you prefer. Freezing it does preserve the flavor a little bit better. And another important point is that they can be brought in and out throughout the year. So you can put them out in the summer and spring and bring them in for the late fall and winter. And you can just keep these herbs going for quite a long time. So let's get into the care. The ones that we have right now are chives, oregano, rosemary. Oh, you know what? I did that backwards. This is thyme, and this one is rosemary. And then we have curly parsley. So generally, you're gonna need the brightest light you can possibly get. So this is gonna be a south-facing window or a west-facing window, because when you think about growing herbs, you're growing them on your patio in full sun. So in your house, you need to get as much sun as possible, because otherwise you're gonna get stretching, you're gonna have issues with watering, so on and so forth. So this is a south or a west window, and you can kind of fudge that a little bit. I always say that because you can always adjust how you take care of something based on the conditions that you have that are maybe a little bit less than ideal. So say you have it in an east-facing window. Now, the longevity of that isn't going to be great, but you can do it for a whole winter, but I don't think you could do it year-round. You can do that, and you just got to cut back the water, and you don't want them growing a bunch. And if you keep cutting on them, sometimes the new growth that comes out won't be quite as flavorful because it doesn't have as much light. But if it's just something that you're keeping just so you can put it outside in the summer, that's totally doable. If you want to be using it, you're going to need that bright, bright, bright light. You can achieve this with grow lights as well. There's no reason you couldn't get grow lights. Lots of people do it. So moving on to the watering, things like oregano, like thyme, and like rosemary, they're going to be a little bit more on the dry side. And sage too. We do have sage. It's not right here right now, but sage is going to be something that's on the dry side as well. So those ones you would want to pot in the same pot. Things like chives, basil, parsley, those ones, cilantro, those ones are going to be need a little bit more water. So it's going to be important to you can either put them in the same pot, separate them a little bit, and control how much you water each different side of your mixed container, or just put them in 2 separate containers and you don't have to fuss with it. So yeah, even the ones that like chives and parsley that like a little bit more water, that doesn't mean they're like a fern. They do want to dry out a little bit, but they never want to be dry. You'll get kind of weird, like crunchy growth, and you'll get wilt, and they won't grow as well, and the new growth will just shrivel up. So you do want to maintain a good moisture level. Sometimes with rosemary, I will water them from the bottom rather than over the top, and that prevents a lot of mold issues that those guys tend to have. A lot of times people will experience the tips of their rosemary turning brown, and that's usually a sign of overwatering. It can be underwatering, but I would find that hard to believe. So, kind of moving on to potting. Potting them, like I said, you want to kind of pot based on the care. So those ones that I said need a little bit more water together, the ones that need a little bit less water together, or you kind of just put them, like you get one of those cute long herb pots and you put the dry ones on one side and the wet ones on the other side. And then you can kind of control each side, you know, in its own moisture level. I prefer terracotta for herbs personally, just because I think that they appreciate the breathability. We have a really nice line of pottery in called Berg's Pottery. Come check it out. And I think herbs would look really cool in it, and it would be really good for them to be in that terracotta. We of course have regular terracotta as well, that either way it's going to be the most beneficial. But if you're dead set on a certain pot that you really like that's glazed, that's fine. Just know that you need to be really careful about managing the water, especially if it's one that has a built-in saucer. You don't want water built up down in the bottom, especially if it's something like a rosemary. Regular potting soil is fine. You don't need to use anything special. Regular potting soil will do it. A couple tips to finish us up. Like I said, drier herbs with each other in 2 separate pots is ideal, but again, you can separate them. Another fun thing that I like to do here sometimes in the spring is make little herb pots based on a recipe. So like one time we did like a drink recipe pot, and we put like lemon verbena, so you could put that in a lemon verbena drink. And then we had mint in there for mojitos, and then we had one more in there that was for something else. Or like you could put rosemary and sage in the same one, because those go really good in gravy. Those are my favorite things to put in gravy. You could put those together, or you could put like basil, parsley, and oregano, because that's what you would put in spaghetti sauce or Italian dishes. So you can kind of do that, and it's kind of fun, you know, like you could make a little tag that says, you know, marinara sauce on this little pot. I think it would be cute. And the final thing is, the number one reason people tend to shy away from growing herbs in the winter is because they're like, oh, I just kill it, right? And I think the reason that people say that is because they don't understand the light situation. So it's important to, if you're gonna do it, have a window that's south or west facing, or have an area with a grow light that you can do that in, because that's how you're gonna be the most successful. And really, you know, if you can find the right spot, it can really be like a long-term farming in your house sort of situation. And I think that that's a really important thing for people to do right now. It gives you something to do. There's so many times, like on Thanksgiving, I forgot to get sage. Well, thankfully I had a sage plant and I just had to chop it down to nothing, which is fine, in my desperation to make stuffing. So, you know, you have it on hand. You don't have to go to the store, you know, when the store might be closed. So, you know, that kind of thing. And it's a fun hobby. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys learned something. Happy holidays, and I hope you all are well, and we'll see you in 2021. Thank you.